You were listening to It Came From the Radio. This is Jennifer Lee Spellman. I gotta say, I just came off of doing my most chaotic interview in 5 years. So I'm a little bit frazzled. And I was howling laughter until 1 in the morning, watching actually something I did. Like I couldn't stop laughing. I was actually screaming in my own bedroom laughing. So I didn't really get a lot of sleep last night because I was up laughing. So that being said, I'm here with JF Monroe. She's a writer, but you know what? Something that I go by, and as many of you might know, I don't have an agent or a manager. I haven't had one since sixth grade. I'm 41 because who can represent me better than me? So going with that MO, JF Monroe, tell our listeners who the heck you are. What are you up to?
Thank you so much. So I am JF Monroe, which is a pen name. I am the author of the legendary Guardians Reunions and Descent into the Void Heart, books one and two of a fantasy romance trilogy that mixes mythology and adventure and all of the messy, deeply human emotions that make stories really great and readers want to read them. My books have gods and angels and demons and epic battles, but at the heart of it all, it's really about themes of, identity and choice and love and resilience. When I am not being JF Monroe, I am a born and raised New Yorker. I hang out with my husband and my 7-year-old son. We have a one-eyed dog named Opie, and we play way too many video games and binge way too many movies. And we drink copious amounts of coffee.
Of what? What was the last word?
Oh, coffee.
Oh, coffee. It trailed out, and I heard Coke, and I was like, Pablo
Well, you know what?
Escobar is in the building. What?
That would have changed the narrative very much. But no,
I was
coffee,
like,
just
wait,
coffee.
because whenever you're collaborating with someone, you need to know if they're on coke or weed or alcohol or
Yep.
kombucha because you need to be on the same level, and those are put you on very different levels. So I personally have a question about angels and demons, but this leads to my first question, which is very well written. I wonder who wrote it. I had someone actually write these questions. Sometimes I have a writer. Now, first question: flawed heroes and relatable villains are central to your storytelling. How do you, J.F. Monroe, portray the complexities of human nature in your characters, and what impact do you hope this has on readers' perceptions of good and evil?
Awesome. Awesome. So when I write heroes and villains, I like to explore that space between them. So in my story, every character lands somewhere across this spectrum of like, do-gooder hero versus like ultra bad villain. And what I landed on with this particular series is reluctant heroes. I really relied on them. They're the ones that never wanted the job, but they stepped up
Ah,
anyway. They're messy, they're flawed, they sometimes make choices that challenge what we believe the, like quote unquote hero should mean, right? And then there are the villains. And in this series, they run the gamut, which was a lot of fun. So they're so some are so layered that you can consider them almost anti-heroes. There are others that have that sympathetic, that you feel sympathy for them enough to make you like second guess your feelings on them, which I always like to explore. And then there are like those truly ruthless, ones who are just evil simply because they are. And they're in this series as well. So, like, I'm talking sometimes you just need that pure Sauron level force of opposition where there's no tragic backstory or anything like that. They are just ridiculously evil. And so they run amok in this series. And I like writing across this range. I love writing across this range because it really mirrors real life to me, right? So, like, good and evil aren't always clean lines. And so sometimes the most interesting stories live in, and that's how I try to kind of capture the reader's perceptions on that.
sure. Yeah. I mean, if you look at, audience and to you, a lot of friends or even family or even my own parents, which I consider great people, but I wouldn't say they've done evil things, but I think in 41 years, both of them have can I say something that pissed me off to the
Yeah.
point where I'm like, they're the villain in my story. And I never fight with my dad. Maybe it's once every 10 years, but I actually got so mad at him a few weeks ago, first time in like 10 or 15 years. And I even took him off my Facebook, which I don't know if he knows that. Took him off my face. I'm so mad. But the point is that, I didn't think he was evil at the time. I wasn't, having hallucinations of devils and angels and stuff. But people are a mix of good and bad. And if you're just going to say, oh, this is my best friend, they're great, they're fantastic, they're going to do one thing wrong. And everyone I know who has this type of dichotomous black and white, all or nothing thinking, bipolar thinking, I guess you can call it. Someone does something bad and that's it. Oh, I hate this person. Da, da. But people mess up and people make mistakes and people do things that can be categorized as good and bad and evil. And yeah, I think your stance is extremely intelligent. So that's all I got to say on that. I'll go to the next question. All right, so your characters face significant trials throughout the trilogy. How do these challenges contribute to their growth and their overall themes of redemption and resilience in your stories?
Yes. So I have a firm belief, not just in stories, but in life, that growth has to be earned. I'm a very big believer in that, which means that
Mhm.
my characters don't get it easy. I put them through the ringer. I stack the odds against them. I throw them into trials that test every ounce of who they are. They're often in the dark a lot of the through a lot of the book, especially the first book, grasping for pieces of like this truth and trying to kind of put the puzzle pieces together. And yes, sometimes even I would dare say like the reader might feel a little frustrated because of how much the characters have to endure. But that's the point, right? Real growth isn't painless and it is never handed over freely. At least that's how I experienced it, and that's how I wanted to kind of depict it into these books. Um, However, when they do grow and find redemption and push through to the other side, it's not quiet. One of my biggest goals for the trilogy was to make every payoff feel absolutely monumental. So, like, no shortcuts, no watered down victories. If you drag your characters through the muck, you owe it to them and the reader um, to commit to the payoff, right? To make every step of the way worth it. Okay, so I endured this much, and this is what you've given me. This is what you've left me with. So these trials, they're not just like these plot devices. They are woven into like the core of the story's themes on like redemption and resilience. And they're also just, constant reminders because the books do get pretty dark. That even in the darkest moments, perseverance can forge, something completely and ridiculously unshakable. And so when that strength finally emerges, it's not just supposed to be satisfying, it's supposed to be almost transformative.
Yeah, that reminds me of like the We Are the Champions lyrics, which I had a dream about this like 15 years ago. And honestly, the song has come up right after a day I might have died about a year and a half ago. And the lyrics to the song, he says something about having, I think, sand kicked in his face. And he said, but it's been no bed of roses, no pleasure cruise. I consider it a challenge before the whole human race, and I ain't gonna lose. We are the champions. And so, he talks about going through it. But then it's a grand celebration of championship. And that's kind of how I feel too. I've been through some struggles, but when I struggle, I struggle. And when I do well, and maybe like when the movie is on the screen and it's all said and done, or I've overcame something, I celebrate. But it has to be official. And the celebration is big, big, big. But so why play small? Why play small with the celebration when you've struggled and struggled so deeply?
I 100% agree with you. Yeah, and that's what I definitely wanted to convey because when I celebrate, I do the same thing. If I've earned it, I'm going to absolutely celebrate the win. So,
Yes. I mean, some people have said, I hear be humble, but it's like if you're spending years and years or decades suffering and trying, can I have one day to, jump off a diving board and do a rap into a microphone, and then, jump into a pool and have four parties for a birthday, which may or may not have happened at one point, you know? All right. So let's go to the next question. And by the way, I didn't have any birthday parties for 14 years since that time. So it's becoming overdue, and the celebrations are going to happen. All right. So
okay.
next question. Totally switching gears. Enough about me. Vulnerability plays a crucial role in your characters' journeys. How do you approach this theme in your writing? And what do you believe it reveals about strength and connection in the face of adversity?
Yeah, I love this question. I love talking about vulnerability, just because it's not just a theme in my writing, right? So like it is the core of it, from the start, I wanted characters who were undeniably strong and powerful, because it is fantasy and there's just things that have to happen. But I also wanted them deeply, achingly human. Their vulnerabilities make them real, right? You have to find a way to connect fantasy with your reader. It's not all the time just like riding dragons and fighting gods. They want to be able to relate to the characters. And so, what better way to relate to them than to kind of like use those vulnerabilities? And I steered away from tropes like miscommunication or, really heavy brooding, which is found in a lot of fantasy. And I love it. I support it. Don't get me wrong. But I wanted to showcase characters who were not afraid to own their emotions, just because I had seen such a lack of it. And so when you read about characters like Theo, in my story, he confronts his trauma, and Shade, she faces her fears. And Penny is my little ball of sunshine optimism, no matter what she's put through, like she doesn't change. And they say what they feel, they mean what they feel. And to me, that's its own kind of superpower in a way. And I'd love to see more of that in writing. And so I thought, why not just showcase it in mine? It even extends to the entities within them. They're vessels, but they have these entities within them. And these powerhouses begin to understand what it means to be human. And you kind of go through that journey with them through the books. They face their own vulnerabilities. It's new, it's bewildering to them. They're not used to feeling this way, making these unexpected connections. And it adds that layer of like complexity and relatability to the story.
Hmm.
And another quick twist that I threw in there was that, yeah, my villains are also quite vulnerable sometimes. Like they communicate, and I feel like that's a dangerous villain. A villain that knows how to communicate with others is incredibly dangerous. They speak openly. Every word is calculated. Every move is deliberate. And I want to see more of that stuff, like on whether it's on the page or on the big screen. Like, it's a ridiculous feeling to have not only a smart hero, but an incredibly smart villain. And so for me, vulnerability, like that's where the true strength lies. It's what forges, our bonds and our resilience, and it drives my characters to rise above the challenges that they're facing. And I hope that that honesty and that openness, stays with the readers long after they close the book, and finish the book.
Going off the question list here, now you said that a lot of your characters say what they feel, maybe they do what they feel. Now, what I found in my short 41 years, sometimes people write what they wish they were, sometimes they write what they are, and sometimes they write what they are deep inside that nobody sees, and sometimes they write what, is transparent to the world. So, are you someone that says what they feel and does what they feel, or where does this energy come from?
So I am an absolute work in progress. I am a big believer over the the saying progress over perfection. And this particular perspective comes from like years. I'll be completely transparent, like years of therapy.
Hmm.
I started at a young age and I've kept with it well into my adult life. And I knew who I was and I know who I am. And I know that there's still more to go, but I'm loving the journey. And so on the journey, I've been faced with all different, parts of that spectrum of like, should I say what I mean? I went from being completely silent to just like starting to slowly open up to vocalizing my thoughts best way that I could, to realizing that, you know, not every problem is my problem. Like that was always a good one to do, and that's in the book as well. And so yes, the short answer to that is yes, but it's a journey and it's not finished yet. So I can't say it's as like, yeah, I just say what I mean whenever I want to. That's not going to be true. Like I do keep some stuff inside. I'm very, very like strategic with things that I say, though I do always try to be honest about it. So, I'll maybe say it in like the nicest, most polite way that I possibly can. I'm still me at
Hmm.
the end of the day. And so short answer, yes, but work in progress.
Well, that's one benefit for your child and husband to be married to a writer. If she can't say it to your face, instead of blowing up at you, like a lot of people who hold things inside, maybe you can just get it. out on the paper and then light it on fire and never tell them, you know. Uh,
That's very
and
true.
also, if I was your husband, I would say every problem of mine should be your problem. You should help me. And then you go, no, it's sorry, it's your problem. I'm
Yeah,
just
it's
coming off a
such,
show all about this.
yeah, no, it's a very freeing feeling to say, like, it's like, and you don't have to be mean about it, but like, that sounds like a problem for you, not for
Like a you
me.
problem, Mr.
Yeah, it's a
Husband.
big problem.
Sorry, there's no dinner on the table. That's a you problem. All right,
Hmm.
back to your work. Now, going to question six on the list. Creative doubt is a common challenge for authors. How do you negate self-doubt in your writing process, and what strategies have you developed to overcome doubt?
Yeah, so for me, and I'm going to just speak solely for me because for everybody, this is so different. I am blessed with a very strong support system. My family, my friends are always in my corner. I told them I was writing something, but it took me a while to kind of open up and kind of elaborate on what I was writing. So they usually just got stuck with, hey, I'm writing something, not like I'm writing a book or I'm
Oh,
writing a
wow.
fantasy novel. Yeah, I kept it very to the chest, just because, it was vulnerable for me. I had never really done anything like this. And so I wanted
Hmm.
to kind of see where it goes on my own. But with their support, like they were just really excited. Um, I will say that the person that probably had the most impact for me was my niece. She was the first one I actually handed the like unedited version to and was like, "Here, give me feedback." We were raised like sisters, and so I was just like, I want you to read it if you're up to reading it. And she was awesome about it. And so I was very fortunate to have that. But I do want to also say, like, give yourself, because I know I did, some credit. You can be your own support system if you don't necessarily have like the family or friends to support you. I've always been my own harshest critic by nature. And with this trilogy, it was no different. However, I did let myself feel proud about it multiple times throughout writing it. Writing a book has been this like lifelong dream of mine from a young age. And so I didn't just write one, I wrote three. And so whenever that doubt started to creep in, I would just remind myself of that. Like, you wrote books, they're out there in the world and people are reading them. And, people you don't know are commenting on them. And it's a really exciting thing. Whether it's, negative or positive comments, like, yeah, they are out there, they exist now. And also, I used to have like a little mantra. I thought that that was really helpful for me. So, like, I would reframe the first draft as something that was just for me. One of my mantras, and it was a quote stolen from an author, Terry Pratchett, who basically said the first draft of your story is just you telling yourself the story. And so it just took so much pressure off because I'm like, you're right. Nobody else is seeing this. I can write whatever I want on the page, and
Hmm.
I'm the only one at the end of the day that's going to read it until I put it out there. And so that got me through the first draft, the second draft, the editing process. Like, it was really fulfilling, for myself. And it's what kept me grounded whenever like that self-doubt creeps in, because you just got to be ready for it. It's a completely natural thing to happen in the creative process, not just in writing a book, just in general. And
Hmm.
so just know, expect it, and you will be ready to deal with it in your own way.
Right. So this interview flew by. We have 2 minutes left total. So I'm just going to throw it back to you. Anything at all that's on your mind you'd like to share with listeners, viewers, anything.
Yeah, I usually like to leave with some piece of advice because I want to be very clear. I went from, nothing to something. And
Hmm.
that's huge for a lot of people. A lot of people put a lot of pressure on themselves. I am one of them. I am one of them in different capacities. And so you cannot edit a blank page. And I know somebody else has said that, but I want to repeat it. Like, if you are thinking about writing a book, do it. If you are thinking about writing a screenplay, do it. If you're thinking about doing anything that is that is a hobby, that is a passion, that it brings you joy, you have to do it. Because the alternative is that you don't do it and then you have regrets. So do it and then see where it goes from there and try to take some of the pressure off because, like I said, I had nothing. I didn't have any training. I didn't read any articles. I decided to write a book one day and I was like, I'm going to do this. And I did it. And so if I can do that with literally nothing under my belt, no criteria, no experience, you can do it as well. And so you should.
Everyone has to start somewhere. And I guess my final thought would be maybe some of you should stop. No, 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 no. Well, maybe. I don't know. Yes and no. I mean, listen, for every optimist and for every you got to do it, there also has to be some doubt because some people have not enough doubt and they don't look at themselves enough, and that's a problem. And I have to deal with some of these people, okay?
That's true. That is very true. Yes, I I can't even rebuttal that too much because that's what it is, right? People need to know when to pause on their things as well. And that's their growth,
Right?
that's their journey. That's how they have to grow. And so it leaves people like us to kind of say like, hey, maybe you want to pause and take another look at this or something. So I get it.
Yeah, I'm like the bad guy. I'm always like, hey, you might want to look at this thing. Oh well, but you know what? Someone needs to say it, and I want people to say it to me. And everything everyone says to you, my final thought is everything that everyone says to you, take it with a bag of salt. It doesn't mean that it's true. And if I'm saying something to you, I've told, I've had many hundreds of health counseling clients and people in my workout classes. I would say at the beginning of the classes and the sessions, everything I say, the field of health is ever changing. Take it with a bag of salt. I could be wrong. Whatever I say now might be wrong in 20 years. So, doubt yourself, doubt everyone, but also confidence. So balance that confidence, balance that doubt. And final, JF Monroe, please tell us where to find your books, website, socials.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a website. It is jfmonroebookshelf.com. You can find my books there. You can find them on Amazon. You can find them on Kindle Unlimited. Book one is on Audible, which is pretty cool and amazing. My Instagram and TikTok are very simple. It is jf.monroe, and you will find me there. I try to post every like Tuesday, Thursday, and I have a blog called Beyond the Veil, and you can find that on the website as well.
All right. Thank you so much, JF Monroe, and back to the studio for more. It came from the radio with Mark Torres.